Hello, my soccer universe. In the NFL, they say that the divisional round, which is the equivalent of the quarterfinal in the Champions League, that's the best weekend of football. And I would argue this was also true for this Champions League quarterfinal first legs. So much great action, so many great goals. I mean, pick any of these four games, and there was at least an outstanding goal in there. Look, for instance, at Declan Rice's second free kick. The first one was already great, but the second one was outstanding. Look at Lautaro's finish against Bayern. Look at the great goals by Doue and especially Kvaratskhelia against Aston Villa. Maybe the Barcelona-Dortmund game did not deliver great goals, but they were great team goals. Look at how Lewandowski scores his second one. Absolutely brilliant stuff, and we had some really great performances in there, none bigger than Arsenal, trouncing Real Madrid 3-0. But then also Barcelona having absolute fun against I would argue, hapless Dortmund side. We have a classic Italian job by Inter, just going to Bayern Munich and hitting them on the counter very clinically so. And we know this Bayern Munich team is also a little bit hampered. And PSG laid on turn on the style. It was not a great week for German teams. And I would argue that for all the other nations where there are two teams in there, you can always say there was one good, there was one bad. For instance, England, Arsenal, absolutely stunning. Whereas Aston Villa, yeah, they did what they could do, but they ran into a bigger opponent. And yeah, for Spanish teams, I guess Real Madrid will be hugely disappointed, while Barcelona definitely celebrating that one. It adds just the icing on the cake if Real Madrid lose when Barcelona win big. But the writing for that was already on the wall. I think the only downside of these first legs is that all four games have now a clear favorite in advancing. So the second legs might not dish out the drama that we would expect from the Champions League. So that's maybe the one downside. However, what was on display, technical skill, absolutely 1A. But enough of me talking about general things. Let's go game by game. Of all the quarterfinal results, Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0 was probably the shocker. However, this was a result that flattered Real Madrid. Although I do want to know how this game would have went when Kivia made a bad back pass to Vini Jr., who runs straight on goal, however, is dispossessed by Saliba. If that would have been played better and Real Madrid take the lead there, I really was curious how the game would have went. There was also a good chance by Mbappe that he fluffed, but overall this was all about Arsenal. Arsenal creating chances, Arsenal putting Real Madrid on the back foot. And it was Courtois who was, especially in the first half, the man of the match. Also, there were some last chance clearances. Real Madrid really seemed like they didn't know what hit them. And were in a way lucky to go into halftime with a 0-0 draw. And then it was a Declan Rice show with two absolute stunning free kicks. And how often do we see free kicks these days? His first one nicely taken around the right side of the vault into the near corner. But the second one was the one that was really outstanding. From the left side right up in the corner. I mean, there was no way that Courtois can ever get there. Perfectly placed, and then just 5 minutes later Miguel Merino adds a third. Absolute destruction of Real Madrid. Late on, Camavinga is sent off. The XG might only say 1.5 to 0.5. I think that's down to the great Mbappe chance, but overall this felt like this could have been 5-6-0. Was this the best result for Arsenal at the Emirates? In comparison, Bayern Munich against Inter was always gonna be a tighter affair, and again there's a what-if moment, because Olise put Harry Kane so nicely free on the edge of the box, and Harry Kane hits only the post, the outside of the post, when you really would think this is the chance that Harry Kane typically converts. If Bayern go up, I think this game could have gone differently, but it was always going to be a tight one with all the injuries that Bayern have. Inter, of course, sitting tight, keeping it defensively sound and trying to hit Bayern on the counter-attack. And they were always a threat in the first half on that one. And they take the lead after a really brilliantly played counter-attack where the ball then in the end, after Thuram more or less nicely backheels it, or he steps on the ball, comes to Lautaro Martinez, who with an absolute brilliant finish with the outside of his foot up in the top corner gives Inter the lead. Yes, German fans will say this was against the run of play. However, this was always in the card that Inter can hit Bayern this way. In the second half, though, Inter got even deeper and it was all about Bayern creating chances and exerting pressure. However, with not much end product. I really felt there were not too many situations where Inter were really put on the back foot. Yes. And then it was the story of Thomas Müller, who had come on for Leroy Sané. Many expected Müller to actually start in the Musiala position, but he comes on, many even argue too late, and he actually gets the equalizer after Lima assist in the 85th minute. And if you see the replay, how Müller is first standing in an offside position, no one of the Inter defense is watching him, and then he just finds his space and gets a tap in. It was actually nicely played, and at that moment you really thought Bayern just had gotten the equalizer, everything is buoyed, they will now go on to win it. No, nothing like that. Carlos Augusto runs free on the left side as Bayern is pushing forward, finds Fratesi, 88th minute. It's a winner for Inter, a huge winner for Inter, because while Bayern very much said, it's just one goal, we can do that, and there's also historical precedent from November 88, but this very much seems like a done deal. I don't think the Bayern have the resources to break Inter. Famous last words? It definitely wasn't a week for German teams as Barcelona trounced Dortmund 4-0, and this was every bit of 4-0 as you would expect. Although Dortmund did have a few chances, and if they convert those, maybe they will feel a little bit better about themselves. But needless to say, the defensive frailties at Dortmund were completely exposed, and Barcelona, and especially Lamine Yamal, just took them apart and created many chances already early on, but finishing really let them down. I mean, there was one where Lamine just dances through Dortmund defense and then has a very tight ankle and is actually aiming for the far corner when probably should have looked for assist or a little bit more dribble. But he's 17, he's having fun. The go-ahead goal comes in the 25th minute when I think it was a free kick by Lamine that finds his way to Inigo Martinez over to Kvaratskhelia, who takes the shot and seemingly goes over the line, and then Rafinha just taps it over the line. So the goal is given to Rafinha, unfairly so, and even more damning, Rafinha could have been offside. He was just not. But this was one of those where I think just stay away from the ball. This was all Kvaratskhelia, this was not Rafinha, but statistics will show it will be Rafinha. After that goal, the big chance fell to Guirassy, and he's just looking at the goalkeeper, not really at the ball, so he cannot connect, but he had a one-to-one with the goalie that you would expect him to make. And if that goes 1-1, maybe we talk a different story. However, then in the second half, it all fell apart. It was, of course, former Dortmund player Lewandowski, although his time at Dortmund was such a long time ago that almost no one remembers. In the 48th minute, it was just so beautifully played. I mean, it was a Lamine Yamal cross that is headed over by Rafinha, and then Lewandowski has absolutely no problem to more or less on the goal line head it home, and then Fermin Lopez sets him up in the 66th to make it 3, and then Rafinha again sends Lamine Yamal in the 77th for a 4th one, and then the game was done and dusted. Actually, in that garbage time, Dortmund did create chances, had even a goal disallowed, and maybe if Dortmund score 1 or 2 there, maybe you could make a storyline that there could be a comeback at the Westfalenstadion. Just don't see it happening, and Barcelona looked imperious, and I think they can cruise in the second leg. And a late goal to make it 3-1 for PSG over Aston Villa very much changed the arithmetic of that tie. I mean, it was everything that you would expect. Villa hanging tight, you cannot really go out and play with PSG, and PSG completely dominant, throwing everything at Aston Villa, creating chances. However, Martinez at first, holding tight the Villa defense, also sitting relatively well, and then they hit on the counter-attack, where the ball then comes to Tielemans, who plays it across the box, and Morgan Rogers can't tap it home. 35th minute, and there's a huge elation for Aston Villa. We did something that we didn't really expect. We got that important goal, and maybe now we just have to sit defensively and frustrate the Parisians. Well, then Martinez happened. A shot, he kind of lets loose. He grabs it just before the line, but from that then results a corner kick. And from that corner kick, in the end, the ball comes to Desiree Doué, who just unleashes a shot right under the crossbar. There's no way that Martinez can save that one. And it is 1-1. And I would argue, yes, the second Declan Rice free kick was nice, but that Desiree Doué goal was almost an equal. Not as nicely placed, though. So it goes 1-1, and I think this was exactly what PSG needed. Yeah, we can break down this Villa defense, and then Kvaratskhelia happened with a great run going past one defender, going past the second one, dribbling himself, and then unleashing a shot into the near corner, high up. Probably the best goal of the entire quarterfinals first leg. What a brilliant move, and this is why I love that player so much. This is what he is in there. And while PSG can play great as a team, the individual quality on this squad is so exceptional that they also can rely on individual moments, and that makes for a really, really dangerous, very well coached team. This is a PSG that we almost do not recognize anymore. But it was still 2-1, and PSG tried to get this third goal, but it seemed like it's slipping away. And then very late on, Dembélé, who was actually then moving more to the center, assists Nuno Mendes, the left back, who then goes into the box in the 9th minute, makes it 3-1, and that more or less puts now all the pressure on Aston Villa to mount a huge comeback that is probably beyond them, because now the game needs to be played a whole lot more open, and that will play into PSG's cards. So you've already seen it during the summaries, and I mentioned also in the opener, all 4 ties have a clear favorite. I mean, Bayern Munich is the outsider with the biggest chance at 18% according to my model, followed by Aston Villa. Dortmund is given absolutely no chance, and Real Madrid a teeny 2% chance of advancing. Although the story coming out of Madrid is now, another remontada, everything can happen in the Bernabeu, and yes, maybe if they score an early goal, it's probably not entirely beyond them because of the individual skill of the players they have on that squad. However, I still feel that Arsenal, the way they played and the way Madrid need to open up and are not solid defensively, Arsenal will be able to take care of that tie. But yeah, assuming that all the favorites go through, we're looking at a first semi-final between Arsenal and PSG. I remember there was a tie of those two in the 90s. And then Barcelona against Inter. And yeah, that has major 2010 vibes riding over it. So curious how it will pan out this time. If you look at the overall chances, it is relatively even. However, Arsenal, also thanks to the huge advantage they have in the first leg, are now the favorites to win it all over Barcelona. PSG dropped all the way to 3rd spot. However, if you were to ask me who is my favorite currently in there, I would actually call PSG out on that one, because PSG seems to be the complete team at the moment, hitting the right form. Maybe the one thing is that, the league is already done. Can this do something in there? I think Inter is hugely underestimated, but I can see why Inter is not that favored, because they show frailties in the league. But when it counts, this Inter team is typically shown up. But those are the 4 favorites. As I always say, the games still have to be played. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we have to play also the second leg of the quarterfinals, and they are now in reverse order. So we get Villa against PSG on Tuesday evening, the same as Dortmund against Barcelona, and then on Wednesday, Inter against Bayern. I think that's probably the one to watch, although many will probably want to see how Real Madrid will try to get a comeback against Arsenal that no one really can expect. So those were my few thoughts on what happened in the Champions League's quarterfinals. This first leg, and it seems already done, as we already mentioned a few times. But this was really exciting. I actually enjoyed myself. I hope that the second legs will give us at least a little bit of drama. I just could not really tell where. I mean, there are some indications that potentially Villa against PSG could get tight, although I really can't see it. Inter against Bayern, I think that's the one to watch, and I could see Inter winning that one 2-0 as well, hitting them twice on the counter attack. But please let me know what you think about this quarterfinal task. I think they're more or less done, but maybe you have a different opinion. Who can stage an upset? And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like these, and I will talk to you soon about more things in my soccer universe. Bye! Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!